Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. So, I have not compiled notes on these books yet. One of them is a book that I have read most of the way through, and there is incredible knowledge in this. I've been wanting to talk more about this book. It's been a long time coming. I did write some notes for this at my old house, and I think they may be on the computer there because I could not find the notes that I typed up here at my new place. So, Liber 420, Cannabis, Magical Herbs, and the Occult. There is so much information in this book about people who we know are connected to the occult, like Aleister Crowley. It even talks about, I'm trying to remember his name. There's just so many historical references in this. But it's the philosopher who kept like a cane, and he kept something in his cane. I can't remember what it is. He kept like opium in it, I believe. Very interesting. It's one of the philosophers we hear about all the time, and we'll be getting into that later on in the book. I was hoping maybe I'd catch a picture. Oh, there we go. Paracelsus. That's who it was. I don't know if it says on this page. Yeah, but they say he kept, here's a picture actually. He kept opium like in the hilt of his sword. So that's kind of interesting. But since I don't have the notes anymore, I'll just kind of like start in the introduction in this book. We'll go over any key things in the beginning that are really interesting because there's a lot of interesting information in this book. A lot. Yeah, it's just like an encyclopedia of interesting information. It goes in there. It talks about in there how the like Sanctum Sanctorum or the Holy of Holies basically where like Aaron and Moses and the priesthood would go, where the Ark of the Covenant was. They would burn these plants and they would breathe in the fumes. Well, they say that these plants were supposedly, it was cannabis that they were burning and ingesting these fumes. It gets really interesting. There's also, excuse me, there's also a theory in this about how Jesus did not literally die, but they gave him some kind of cannabis, like drink or potion of some kind, but it basically put his body in a type of sleep so that it almost seemed like as if he was dead, and then they came back and got his body 3 days later. It's been over a year since I read this book, and I kind of read it really fast, and it's really hard to read something and also retain all the information, all the details of the facts. But we'll be getting into that theory later on in this book. I'll probably start a series for this. And then I'm also going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the Book of Razael, which is super interesting. I've mentioned it briefly in a prior video, and it's basically the whole lore of it is that it was the book that was given by the Archangel Raziel. He's the Archangel of the Divine Masculine. He corresponds to Hokmah on the Tree of Life, so the second Sephiroth. You've got Kether at the top, and then Hokmah going down. Corresponds with the left hemisphere of the brain. He is the Archangel. He's the Keeper of Secrets. He holds like the giant book in his hand. He has a record of basically every earthly act. It kind of reminds me of like the Akashic record in a way. I wonder if that's almost like the Christian Western ceremonial magic version of the Eastern. Maybe the Eastern version is I totally just lost my train of thought because I lose track of them because there's so many different kinds of different texts and stuff that people tap into. And it's the same in The Secret Doctrine, Madame Blavatsky. She taps into this ancient secret book, the Akashic Records. That's what I was talking about. A lot of these things seem kind of synonymous. So Raziel is the Archangel of, he's the Keeper of Secrets, childbirth, I believe, and there's another correspondence. somewhere, but I can't remember what it is, but definitely the divine masculine. He corresponds with that energy. And he was also, the myth of this book, basically, the Book of Razael, is that when Adam and Eve got kicked out of the garden, and there's more pieces to this lore, which we can discover later, because I know other archangels were involved at some point, Raphael, I don't remember which other one, but they actually were upset with Adam and Eve, and I don't remember the details, but Raziel comes to the aid and kind of helps them, helps Adam and Eve. And essentially, this is the first book that's ever written. I mean, really, with the myth of the Book of Razael, it's handed to Adam and Eve from the archangel Raziel, and this is the first book, essentially, after they're kicked out of the Garden of Eden, to so that they can restore themselves, they can return to grace. And this time they'll do it through they'll have actual gnosis, they'll have knowledge once they've returned to the garden, whether you view it as a literal garden or a metaphorical garden. It's really when the internal temple of man is completed in each of us, and we can truly shed and let go of the ego that no longer serves us, we will be brought back to the kind of that primordial celestial garden, once again. So, yeah, I've only read maybe, about a fourth of the way through the book. I'm on page 58 right now. You can see that top layer is what I've read so far. So, since I've kind of covered the basics of both of these books, and I don't have notes yet, I think what I'm going to do is, instead of just reading the introduction to this and going over this, let me read about this part real quick, though. In the introduction to Liber 420, they refer to Aleister Crowley in one of his journal entries. It says, in a New York flat on April 20th, 1918, so 420, as part of an ongoing series of invocations and rituals, a magician and his two assistants recorded the following in a diary entry at the start of their night's events. 10:45 p.m. Akatha, if I'm spelling or pronouncing that correctly, Therion and Arction. Therion was Aleister Crowley's magical name, I believe. Therion and Arction took 1 cc of hashish. And I don't remember what the measurement of cc is. It is lowercase cc. 11:10, Achita and Arcton, 1 cc hashish, and 11:30, 11:30, Achita, that same name, and Arcton, 1 cc hashish. And it says here, Therion was the magical name of the famous British magician, Aleister Crowley. And he had assistants, Roddy Minor and Charles Stansfeld Jones. Okay, each cc signifies a gram of hashish, which is a considerable amount when ingested. This ritual use of cannabis resins was part of the Amalantra working, a now legendary event in some occult circles. A legendary event, and which took place over a number of months in 1918 while Crowley was living in New York. Besides the use of hashish, mescaline was also ingested as part of the invocations performed. So as you can see already, we're just now getting into this book. I haven't even gone through the introduction and stuff, because there's some interesting things even in just the intro. Even here in the acknowledgments, which is before the introduction to this book, a book of this size and depth would be akin to the labors of Hercules to accomplish alone. The array of occult disciplines approach requires the expertise of specialists in various fields. Notable consultants on this project. The first one they have listed here, his name's Pierre J. Surette. He's a Thelemite, also OTO Minerval, honorary 9th degree, so I think that's one of the highest, if not the highest degrees in the OTO. Gnostic, 97 degree Mason. I have no idea what that means. If any of you out there know what that means, let me know. I think it's a different branch of Masonry, because I know there's Memphis Masonry, there's so many different branches, and I think there's more degrees in those other bodies of Masonry, some of them being older bodies too, maybe even independent bodies that are not connected to Grand Lodges. I'm not sure how that would work. As far as I know, I'm only I am only conscious, and I had read something about this. I ran into a Facebook post. I'm going to sidetrack here for just a second. That said the same thing. There's higher degrees. Well, a lot of people think the 33rd is the highest, but that's an honorary Scottish Rite degree. You have that on one side, one branch. If you want to know more about this, go back to my video on Freemasonry. But on one branch, you have Scottish Rite, which is degrees 4 through 33. And then you have York Rite Masonry, which is 4 separate bodies within York Rite Masonry, but it ends in Commandery, which is Templar. And beyond that, there's different bodies like Eastern Star, but I don't know of any of these like 90 degree. Whenever I hear of a 90 degree Mason, I don't know what they're talking about. And then I also read that there's Celestial Masons, or Cosmic Masons, which I guess is kind of... There's some things that are just so magical about the path that it seems like it goes beyond the bounds of being an intellectual. It goes beyond the bounds of doing studies. It's certain people are placed in your lives to insert deep, deep, deep lessons into your life, and the wisdom that they give, it almost seems as if it's like a Gandalf or somebody from a fairy tale, But I think there's a small circle of people on this planet who really are pretty illuminated souls. They've either done this a whole bunch of times, or they're just imbued with more intrinsic understanding or knowledge. Some people just refer to them as light workers. This could come as many names. But essentially that would be what a true cosmic Mason is. You don't have to be part of a fraternity, so to speak, to spread the teachings and spread the genuine love of these ancient mystery school traditions, and what they really teach is how to better ourselves so that we can better the world, and we can basically spread love and transmute our energy so that we're not creating hell on earth, we're creating heaven on earth. Sorry for that side ramble. So I think that's a good little intro to Liber 420. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of I think they call it bibliomancy, or bibliomancy, which is where you kind of like randomly open up to a page. And I'm going to kind of do that now, just kind of channel the energy. I did do a banishing earlier, so that felt good. I did a little bit of meditation. Let's see. I'm going to go right here and see what's here. What is this chapter? Hemp and Folk Magic and Robin Goodfellow. I'm trying to remember if I had skipped a couple chapters, and I wonder if this is one that I had actually skipped, perhaps. Yeah, there's so much information in this. This is like reading something as big as, I think this might even be bigger than like Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages, and that's a magnum opus in and of itself. So is Crowley's Magic 4, I think it's called. It's like a lot of books put into one. They put the Book of the Law in there, as well as like 3 or 4 other books. It's the big hardback blue one. I have that one as well, but this is a magnum opus as well. This is one of those books that I would keep forever, just because of the references in here and because of how much occult information was used. Let's see if we can find anything on this page that comes of interest. I don't know how much of this we're going to be able to understand without reading prior stuff to understand the context of it. But let's see. I'm on page 456, and we'll start here where it says the devil spins hemp. Earlier, we referred to the ritual use of hemp cords as belts by the Templars and other groups. Okay, we were just talking about the Templars, so that's cool that we came to this page. Interestingly, Margaret Murray has written that coven leaders similarly wore a garter made of hemp, and in some cases, this article was used for drastic measures. So I'm assuming coven leaders here we're talking about Wiccan or witches. Yes, here it says, witches in each canton, of whom the chief wears the garter in token of his or her high position. The right of becoming chief is said to go by seniority. And Hots Bredigny, I'm slaughtering that name, a man who makes a pact with the devil has a red garter. The red garter figures also in one of Croker's stories of Irish fairies. In the 16th and 17th centuries, the garter played a sinister part. Fear certainly prevented further inquiry in the case of the man witch John Stewart in 1618. Man witch. That's interesting. He was in prison on the charge of being a witch, and was so fettered that his own words he could not raise his hand to take off my bonnet nor to get bread to my mouth. Half an hour before the trial began, he was visited by 2 ministers of religion. They had hardly left when the officers of the court were sent to bring him before the justices. They found him already dead, strangled with a tate of hemp, or string made of hemp, supposed to have been his garter or string of his bonnet. He was carried out into the air, and all means were used to bring him round, but he revived not, but so ended his life miserably by the help of the devil, his master. It's a quote from Murray, 1933. So that's a really weird story, and that's not the end of the page, but I think that's all I'm going to read for now. So this guy, I'll go over this again real quick, this quote. He made a pact with the devil, and he had a red garter. In the 16th and 7th centuries, the garter played. This man witch John Stewart, he was in prison on charge of being a witch. Yep, he basically killed himself. But I was kind of confused by the part where it said he was in prison on the charge of being a witch and was so fettered that in his own words he could not raise his hand to take off my bonnet nor to get bread to my mouth. So I'm guessing they beat him, fettered. I don't remember what the definition of fettered is, but I'm going to assume that, yeah, it was a witch hunt back then, So, okay, that's all I'm going to cover on Liber 420 today. And since I do not have notes on the Book of Razael yet, I think I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here. I'm going to, pick a page or two, do some bibliomancy, and see what we come up with. Because there's been a lot of interesting information in this book, but you have to know the Hebrew alphabet to some degree. You have to know, or at least have a chart of what the different letters mean, because a lot of this stuff is pretty difficult to understand if you don't already have some prior understanding of esoteric knowledge. Okay, so I stopped on the chapter. It's called "This is the Prayer of Adam, the First Man." This looks interesting, because this is talking about lore of Noah. Noah, let's see. Yeah, God's talking. He says, "Gather your sons and wives, and the sons' wives live in hiding for a short time until the wrath of the Lord passes over." This is referring to the flood. Noah and his family. Noah took the book from the hand of the holy prince Raphael. Here it just says Raphael. There's no A. It's just Raphel. In time he received understanding of the knowledge therein. By the words of the holy book he was guided into the Ruach of the Lord. And Ruach, if we go back here, because there's 4 different parts of the soul. The Ruach is the actual spirit or mind. Nefesh is the soul itself. And there's 2 others, which we'll end up going over later I'm sure I'll get into this book probably more by demand. So if you want me to do notes on Liber 420 and go over it, and you want me to do notes on the Book of Razael and go over it, let me know in the comments which one you would rather me do first. That way I can focus on my time on what I know I will actually be making a video for. By the knowledge Noah became wise by the holy name and spoke to every house of God. So it seems like Noah got the book of Razael from Raphael, I'm guessing, from what it said here. Because this book was transferred down from the family. It went to Adam, and it went to all of Adam's descendants, and this mystical knowledge. It's very similar to the stuff that I read in the 3 books of Solomon, the Lesser Key, the Goetia, all that, the Testament, the Greater Key of Solomon. A lot of that lines up with this. It's that whole patriarchal line, you know, of this information, the keys, the goetic keys, the demon stuff. This is a lot more of the angel stuff in here. It's like the science of the angels and understanding basically the cycles of the world and stuff. It talks a lot about the zodiac in here. A lot of similar, concepts. Sorry, I'm getting a little sidetracked. By the knowledge of this book, Noah became wise by the holy name and spoke to every house of God. Come to the ark, those righteous and worthy. From the secrets of the book, Noah, son of Lamech, built the ark and understood all the words. The ark and all the animals on board. The animals are emblematical of the zodiac. The ark is the transference of this knowledge onto future generations. It's the preservation of God's teachings. I've heard that's another symbolism of Noah's Ark. Damien Eccles said that. In the secrets of the book, Noah, son of Lamech, built the ark and understood all the words. He then brought to the ark 2 and 7 males and females. 7 being symbolic, and we know 2 of each one. The sky opened up, and the flood lasted 40 days and 40 nights. Noah spoke by the Ruach of wisdom and understanding, giving blessing to the Lord Elohim, the great, strong, and honored King. Let me see if there's anything else on this book that is super interesting or that really sticks out to me. That's really the stuff I look for the most in a lot of this. You'll find that as you study more esoteric stuff, more occult stuff, there's so much to read, there's so much to get through that you really just start to learn how to nitpick all the good tidbits out of stuff. That's why I like to take notes, because I'm like, ooh, this is really interesting. This is way more interesting than anything I've read on the past 3 or 4 pages. So if you can condense information like that and keep a record of it, I think there's real value in that. Most definitely. Here, I'll read this. The Ruach of Elohim passed over the earth, lowering the water. The ark rested gently upon the Mountain of Ararat. Here's some lore about that. A mountain in Armenian province of the same name, whereupon the ark was said to have rested according to the Old Testament. Noah was guided by the wisdom of the book. It was made known to his son. And then it just talks about how the book, just keeps getting passed down. Shem. It went from Noah to Shem, down to Abraham, then from Abraham to Isaac, from Isaac to Jacob, from Jacob to Levi, from Levi to Moses, from Moses to Aaron, from Aaron to Phineas, from Phineas to his son, and to all the generations coming after. So yeah, it's a good little summary of what I was just talking about. Well, guys, I think I am going to go ahead and end the video for today. Thanks for sticking through it. If you watch the whole thing, be sure to give me a like. Please subscribe. I hope you all are doing extremely well. That's really what I want for everyone, is I want everyone to find what makes them happy. I want people to have peace of mind, because that's really what I'm working on for myself as well. As we move forward, that way we can live in the now, and we can totally be immersed and not be worrying about, the past or the future so much. We're not anxious about anything. We're not hung up on anything. We're all just healthy, peaceful, blissful. All right, everyone, take care. Peace and blessings.